Misunderstandings are beyond the sky. Is life just full of goodbyes? We caught a glimpse of our future, but it's time for a goodbye. If I had done this then, if I could return to then, but I can't become the boy I was. In that little room where I used to live, a stranger now resides. The awful words you said, all those wasted days. A lukewarm can of coffee on that cold winter's day. The long, rainbow colored scarf, like a trail of memories, chase me down the alleys, and I cannot get away. Suppose our tepid happiness were to linger on, in darkness of our hearts. An evil seed would sprout, and it's time for a goodbye. Goodbye. It's all right. Be well wherever you are. I too will survive. It's all right. So goodbye. Hello, and welcome to the Legendary Dream Team. I'm your host, Spook, and today I'm joined by Jingalls
Hola.
and Yetti.
Hey, hey.
Today we are discussing the manga Solanin by Inio Asano. We're going to be going right into full spoilers, so if you'd like to avoid those, please give this manga a read. It's well worth your time in the few hours that it will last. For a quick summary, what happens when you're in your 20s, lost in life, and unsure what to do? You start a band. This book explores those ideas and more, so how about we just jump right into discussion? Overall thoughts about this book. Jingles, why don't you go and take us off?
Yeah, sure. I ended up really enjoying this book. The art is fantastic, and especially by the end, it gets so incredibly detailed that I desperately wished we had an anime version of it. Because I think the only thing missing is it's a book about music, and there's no
Yeah,
music. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, and I feel like it would just be made that much better with that. But right away I connected to Miko, and I felt like I knew exactly where she was in her 20s. It feels like that's the exact type of mode I was in, at that
sure.
age.
Yeah,
Sometimes still, I'm just like, yeah, it would be great to just quit my job and do something artistic, or just have kind of that freedom. Um, and then also being reminded of the struggle that comes with having to try to do something like that. Um, so yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very fun discovery for me, because I didn't really know about it prior to this. So
yeah. Do you have any kind of experience in, I guess, anime surrounding this kind of idea of starting a band and whatnot?
not really, other
Uh,
than
it reminded me because there's a couple that I've seen or heard of. One of them called Beck, and the other Bochi the Rock. That it just kind of reminded me of the entire time.
oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, Yeti.
Yeah, so this is probably like my second manga that I've jumped into after we did which Uzumaki together, the manga crew. And this was, I would say, if I was in my 20s, it would be life-changing. And reading it in my 30s, I found it still really powerful.
Yeah,
I think the beauty of it is that it's kind of universal for anyone who reads it, in the sense that everyone goes through uncertainties in their life. I think in your early, 20s, maybe it hits more vividly or strongest. But in your 30s, you have it. Your 40s, I think it's just a universal feeling, and that this story and Mako, and all the characters. I mean, it follows her and her boyfriend, and they're kind of bandmates. And there's all little vignettes or mini stories about each one, how they all deal with this sense of what is happiness, what you should do in your life, and either taking chances or things like that. And it's pretty complicated. It's not always just you should go for it. You know, there's a scene in the beginning where Maiko, like you said, quits her job. Essentially, just says, I'm going to quit my job that's sucking the soul out of me." And she said, there's a quote where she says, after a week, the aimlessness, there's a negative part of aimless freedom, and I thought this author really gets to some complicated stuff about life. Excuse me, about life. I'm not crying.
I cried for the latter half of the entire thing, so it's okay if you do. No, but this, I think, coming from where I'm at in life, I'm 27 in like 3 days, 4 days.
Mm.
So just like the looming kind of abyss is on the horizon. So this book kind of hit me hard where it's a lot of like, where am I at in life? Am I happy in life? Is this where I want to be forever? And so a lot of her thoughts, and honestly, all the characters' thoughts in the book kind of mirror my own, which is kind of why I chose this book and why I said, "Hey, let's read this." Because I wanted therapy. I wanted this recording to be a therapy session.
Was this your first time reading it, Spook?
It was, yeah.
Oh, so you didn't know?
I
Okay, good.
I had no idea going into it. I knew a little bit about the book going into it, but no, I loved it. Uh, the art was great. The plot was pretty easy to follow. Uh, Loved the characters and how different they were, but how I kind of look at them and I go, I have a friend like that. I have a friend like that. I have a friend like that. It was great. Awesome.
I saw a lot of reviews saying how it's like super depressing. And then other reviews said his work is way more depressing than this. And
Yeah.
the, I found it more like melancholic, which is like
Yeah.
maybe an offset of depression, but just again, he's not trying to put the reader in a funk. And
No.
I read an afterword he wrote, and which is frankly as good as the story itself.
It was, yeah, absolutely
It's
stellar.
amazing, and he's just saying that how he was just writing this because he had his own insecurities in life at this age, at 24, writing manga and seeing if there was a future in it, if he could make a living out of it, and if this, and he just put it all into this story. And you totally get that. He gets his points across immaculately.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 20, like your 20s, I know, Yeti, you were talking about seeing this in your 30s and 40s as well, but especially in your 20s, I think, especially like right after you've hit graduation of college, um, life kind of takes like this weird lethargy. Like it just, you have so much more time ahead of you, and you're expected you know, for a lot more than 20 years, you're expected to understand what you're supposed to do. And this book does an interesting part of representing that. Like no one's ever really moving, not fast anyway, and they're just like, I wouldn't say stuck. Everyone's still moving forward a little bit, but it's interesting to kind of see like the just the little bits of their lives that they focus on and what they want to how they interpret that value going forward.
And it's also like the first time you at that age kind of hit this disappointment with the realities of even positive parts of it. Like when you're graduating college and you realize like, oh, you're not going to jump right into the career that you
Yeah.
planned on from your degree in like a very certain case. It's like, oh, this job is like, it's a job that I can get. If you were in a creative degree, you might take a business job because you need to pay the bills or whatever because your parents say so. So it's that first little bit of like, wait, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, or how long? 5 years, and then I'll transition to a different thing that I really want to do. And I think that's like the first time in our lives we really hit that moment, and then it's like, oh, later in our lives it comes a little more numbing, but the 20s is when you really have to kind of deal with it or trying to battle with that.
Yeah. Well, like especially like with Miko, like in the flashback for her and Tanita, somewhere in the middle of the book, where they're talking about this grand plan of having the largest apartment in Tokyo and going big, and she can handle it because her job pays really well, and she, at that point, clearly is just not seeing that she's not going to want to be there forever,
Yeah.
because that's where the money is, and getting a little bit of supplement from Tanida as he's doing his thing. But yeah, just totally not having the foresight to see that you got to have longevity in what you're doing in some capacity.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to touch on something you said, Jingles, about how the characters all kind of seemed frozen in life. Where it's kind of why I like the last chapter as much as I do, because we kind of see this whole story move through in like a short few months, if that. We see like the big like they get their one chance where they get to perform in front of people, and then the last chapter is like fast forward 6 months. Here's what's changed. Like we see these people frozen for so long, but then we kind of see how time affects them in the sense where like a lot does happen. Maiko has a job. I don't remember his name, but the bigger guy has a job. It's
Kato.
Kato,
yeah.
yeah.
Maiko's moving out to a smaller apartment. It's crazy how life can seem so slow, but then when we look at it, it moves crazy fast. We just don't really perceive it at the time.
Yeah. And kind of to that point as well, I do like the way Asano paces the chapters, because I actually was having a hard time trying to figure
Yeah.
out how much time had happened between each chapter for some things, like being far more explicit at times, saying, "Oh, it's only been a couple weeks since I quit my job and now I'm really bored," or kind of having to guess that it's been like 2 years since Tanada died.
Oh, I put it together that the whole thing was only 1 year.
Was it only a year? I thought at some point it got more explicitly stated, but maybe I'm
I think
wrong.
it was
Maybe it
like
was 2 years
6 months
Yeah.
until the show. So Tanada dies. 6 months later is the show, and then it creeps back into summer by the time Maiko starts actually
Okay.
moving
So yeah,
on.
so a little bit shortened there, but that also still kind of gets to the point of it's like
Yeah.
there's very specific time frames that we're focusing on because not much happens in between all those.
What did you guys think of Tanada's death?
Ooh.
I mean, I so this is kind of like it's. Did you read the afterword, Jingles?
The one that's just written in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Was it? Oh. So it's interesting that the author hates Tanada. Really doesn't like him at all. And so I kind of ended up, before I knew that, I kind of felt the same way, where I really didn't like his character or just didn't agree with the things he was
Sure.
doing, or just found him, for a lack of a better word, kind of weak in decision making in some things, which
Interesting.
could be with all the characters. I mean, they were all lost and they all had trouble with it, but with him, it felt a little more pathetic. And so reading the afterword, the author goes on about how he hates this idea of when you kind of use this idea of like wishing for something to happen, where it's like a lot of people, you could say, praying, like I'm praying over and over for this to happen. I hope it happens. But even you're like, you could like superstitious stuff. Like if I get this candy bar out of the machine, it's good luck, and I'm going to keep pulling that on. Where he's like,
Absolutely.
that's not a real thing. It's not how life works. And hard, he's like, the sad reality is like hard work is usually leads you to where you're going to go in some place. Like you have to work at something to get somewhere. And he hates that Tanada is the antithesis of that, and that his death scene is like a perfect encapsulation of that. Because what was the last thing, like he said, he's just like, oh, if I can make it before the light changes, I'm sure everything will work out. Like
Yeah.
till the last second, even though he had this like epiphany that he wanted to be with Miko, and that was what worth living was for. He, till the very end, he had this stupid like, if I get past this thing, then it'll all work out. And I don't know if you guys think he tried to kill himself or if it was an accident, but that, like, to me, that line was like everything, especially after reading the afterword.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, how do you interpret the extreme close up of his face when he's crying right before? Did you think he was happy in that moment? Because I didn't. I thought he was still kind of upset. But yeah, it was.
I'd have to go right where he's like bursting off into oncoming traffic.
Yeah,
I didn't think he was happy either. I
yeah,
can't explain it, but I think I've heard other people I've seen see he had like an epiphany of like he finally he found what was meaningful to him, and even with that call to Michael at the end. But to me, it was more just like of a almost like a desperation. Like, and then
yeah,
again, that line really stuck with me, where it was like a plea. Like once I make this last
Yeah.
light, everything will, like the words, everything will work out. Like that's not how things don't work out. You either work, you work towards your goals or things like that. But so that's how I looked at it.
I think he was on the road to being happy. And I think it was like he was like taking that first step in the sense. But he still had that part of him that wasn't sure about life also there. And then that won in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I've been kind of struggling with that entire scenario just because he disappears for like 5 days. And maybe we can chalk that up to the fact that he didn't have a phone, but also I I don't
Yeah.
know. um and then yeah, he gives up on the band, which okay, I think that's fair. He goes back to his part-time job and manages to get full-time. So he's at least planting himself in this position of, for lack of a better, growing up and
Sure. Yeah.
taking on responsibility for him and Miko. But I never got the impression that he was maybe fully happy with that, or more just doing it because he felt like he had to. So yeah, I don't know.
I think
It was an interesting.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think he was beginning to realize what actually made him happy. Um, which was I think Maiko.
Yeah,
And
she was the first person he called, I guess, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, and I think his death, like a big overarching theme of his whole story, the author is saying like you can't wait on things for it to happen, right? You can't procrastinate. You can't say, one day I'll do this, or that. And I feel like his death was like an accumulation of that, because even if he had an epiphany, this is what I'm going to do, boom, you can die suddenly, and it's all for naught. So why are you hesitating to do anything? I think he balances that out with like, you need to have some direction. Like I said, Maiko kind of listened to that and quit her job because she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. But then found herself in kind of this aimless freedom, which the quote was, aimless freedom is absolutely boring. And I think there's a truth to that, you
Yeah.
know? So Tanada, I think, was the ultimate like lesson, definitely in story for Maiko. I mean, her perspective totally changes after that death, where she finally makes lessons, gets the guitar, finds some sort of purpose, and just moves towards something.
Agreed. Yeah. Are there any kind of other standout characters or subplots throughout this that you guys like to mention?
So I was a big fan of, I think his name is Rip,
yeah.
their one
Yeah.
friend. He seemed like kind of to me, he seemed like the older friend. I don't know if they were all the same age, but
I think they're all the same age, but there is always that one guy who seems like the older friend, regardless.
right. And there's two like amazing scenes with him.
The
The
old
first,
man.
yeah, the first one's him and the
Yeah.
old man, and that's when the story, like the book, really started to like hit for me. I was like, oh, this is good stuff. And leading up to this, old man gives him like letters every day for the post office, puts in the wrong box or something. He's like, he has to keep reminding him, like, no, like the guy has some sort of Alzheimer's or whatever. And it leads up to him kind of giving him a last letter and says like, thank you, you know, for for that. And just his like pontifications on life was kind of beautiful. Rip, where he's just like, life is ordinary, life is okay, at least it's living, being alive is the
Yeah.
prize, kind of
That
thing.
line was incredibly impactful when I read that.
Mm-hmm. Because the whole time he's going back and forth of like, am I making the most of it? Should I be doing this? And which everyone has. And the other one is with him and Maiko at the end, when he just says, I just like, allow me to cry. And he's dealing with Tanada's death. There's definitely like hints of jealousy there about Tanada's death, I think, with Maiko.
Absolutely.
And just how he hauled deal, but still, and calls him stupid and selfish for what he did. Not even saying it was suicide, just that he decided to try to race the light, make that one light. So then the artwork of them crying is just like beautiful. Like it was just great stuff. So I really connected to him as a character.
Yeah, I just kind of adding to his points of jealousy when he's on his own moped, and he's basically when we learn about his jealousy of Tanada and being like focused on, I always thought maybe I'd have to try stealing Miko from him
Yeah.
or all these things, and now I don't have to, and that's almost making him angrier because he doesn't
Yeah.
have his friend anymore to interact with. Um, Also an interesting scene because he crashes and it's played off for comedy like right after.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed Rip's character and Kato and Rico, was that her name? They
I'll be
were
honest. I
yeah,
was mixing
they
up a
were
lot of the girls.
yeah.
Sure.
They were fine, but not really as impactful to me as the others.
I actually didn't love Kato, and I'm just wondering if like it just felt it indulges in like I don't know if it's like the manga thing, but when it's like the faces he'd make sometimes, and
I think
the
he was
fart when he
just
like
I think he was just a comedy character.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's just like how manga or anime do comedy. It's just it's
Yeah.
it's not usually hit with me.
That's what we'll say. This entire book is riddled with just weird times where all three of the band people are just in weird poses with each other,
Yeah.
just randomly come up on each other, and two of them are in some sort of stance or
I mean, the amount of times where I have been like fighting one of my friends and I have him in like an arm bar and someone's come in like, what are you doing?
yeah.
So that was relatable.
We're like trying to entertain the kids by making body animals, like turning themselves into
Yeah,
an
and they're
elephant.
crying and stuff.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think the scene that was really impactful for me was kind of like in like the turnover part where Maiko's talking to Tanada's father.
Mm.
Um, I think that was just kind of like the healing moment for her. And the line that really struck with me was him saying, "Please don't forget about Naruto. Perhaps your role in all of this is the proof that he existed."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that, and then I just kind of looked at the page for 5 minutes, just like, okay. Because I think everybody goes through loss in life, and then you get really down in the dumps whenever you think about them. And then it's like, well, be the proof that they were a person,
Right.
show the world who you are because of them.
It's a universal part of humanity, I think, with whether it's a partner of yours, you lose a grandparent,
Hmm.
parent, child, or anything. I mean, it's to keep continuing on their life, bringing them up in conversation and, telling their stories when they were, because it goes by fast. And, I don't know stories about my great grandfather. Probably don't know, 95% of the stories of my grandparents.
Yeah. I asked my brother a couple months ago because I kind of came to realization that I knew nothing about like my grandfather's father on like my dad's side. I asked him like, "Did you know him at all?" And he was like, "No."
Right.
And so it just had me like thinking about, man, there's a lot of people in my family that I don't know, but I still see their impact on my family, and so it's weird. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I I'm good.
Yeah. He's deep in thought. Don't want to choke you. Don't want to choke you up, Jingles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well, that
this
was a
book
cool
was
mirror.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was a cool mirror with like Maiko's mom when they had the
yeah,
conversation with her and the meeting with her and just the two sides of parenthood and things like that. I thought was really really interesting. And about this book, it's about this indecisiveness of life. And so much of it when we go through it, we're focusing on it just through our own lens and how it's affecting us. But it was really cool in this book to see how it affects other people, or how they bring their own energy to your indecisiveness, where the mom always has input on it, like, why'd you quit that job? It's good money, you
yeah,
should move back home, get away from the big city, and things like that are thrown at you. And or even just like with Tanada, when she quits her job, he says how much pressure it's going to put on their life, and we should probably break up because we're not going to be able to make this work with you quitting your job. And that all comes from her indecisiveness, like nothing malicious about that, but she's just working on her own life and her own self, but it has all these
sure,
outside parts that it hits. And I really um, enjoyed that part of it.
yeah, absolutely. And it almost feels like this moment of indecisiveness led to all of these events happening, and how she's almost kind of back to where she was when the book started. However, her outlook on it is completely different.
Funny, that's how I took it. Honestly, like
Yeah,
when you were talking
yeah,
about the end of the book, where it's cool to see them all later, and I'm like, they're kind of the same place they were. But you're right; they do have a different. They're more at peace, I think, with what life is, and things like that. But it is interesting where he puts it on. They have a job and things like that. But it's kind of similar to just their life before, which was I really found interesting.
It's those, yeah, the ideas of grandeur because you've made it past the next milestone have been brought down a little bit. Like, I don't know, I just need to go across the river and live in a smaller space and work on
sure.
things differently. Um, Gonna get used to the idea of hanging out with an 18-year-old who, you know, who is teaching me life lessons that I don't necessarily, or uh, allowing me to reflect on what I have needed to do to age um, properly, so and mature. Um, yeah,
I know the rest of Inio Asano's books are a lot more depressing. So
yeah,
I wonder if this was like his kind of like, no, they don't get to be rock stars. Like that was his like his little note. It's like, no, they're back to where they were. But there's still, yeah, that shining kind of light of
Because
even though they tried and failed, they're better for it.
but she's like, to me it was, like I said, she, or focusing on Maiko in general, Tanada's death
Yeah.
helped her move forward to see something through. Like all she wanted to do
mhm,
was play the guitar and move forward. They wanted to take that band seriously, which Tanada would never do. He always just called it a
Yeah.
hobby, or it was just, I had my other job. We just did this on the side. She said, no, this is a passion of yours. Commit to it and see something through. And he never really did. Even like when they had that offer to play for that girl, he was like, no, 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 we're not doing that. Immediately, like, not following through with it, seeing where it goes. And to her, it was just like, I'm going to learn this guitar. We should get the band back together because we all love doing it and see it through where it goes. They got an opportunity. She's like, yeah. And they're like, what, put on a show with a month's notice or what it was? She's like, yeah. And like
Yeah.
that to me was the biggest step of the point of the book is like, see things through if you want to do them. Don't put them off, don't be scared or let your get in your own head. See it through, go work towards it. It doesn't mean your life's going to change. Like they're not going to be rock stars, but you saw something through, which is really important.
There's no growth without failure,
Boom.
basically. Yeah. That's some proverb. I don't know.
well, and once she sees it through too, she just doesn't need to go much farther. Like they don't need to play because that she kind of fulfilled what her goal was, right?
Yeah.
Um, and um, and I do like the manager guy
Oh, yeah.
continuing to remind them about how Tanita messed up his life too. Just
I don't know. I felt like his life was more or less kind of positively impacted with their interaction. Where
oh yeah, I think it's totally tongue in cheek, but
yeah.
he
Right.
just kept reminding him to.
Yeah, well, if this ends up failing, I'm blaming him, and he doesn't know that Tanada's dead. But
Right.
yeah, I liked that guy. Yeah,
They had a nice little urinal conversation.
They did have a
yeah,
nice little
yeah,
urinal conversation, but also bring up that he was also a former um, young guy who wanted to pursue being in a band and opted for something else. Just
Hmm.
yeah,
constantly speckled with all these people who are doing all of these things that they weren't expecting to do. Even Tanada's father talking about like how he was just always wrapped up in his work, just not really interested in doing anything else other than being a working horse. So
Everyone is like,
yeah.
yeah,
like who is maybe 1% of the population? Like I don't want to be depressing, but I mean, I really think that that's why this book is universal. Um, you know,
It's definitely caused some reflection for me because at my job I work 4 10s, so I'm there from 5:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and I've always
Oof.
been like, man, this sucks because when I get home, I only have a couple hours to myself. I can't do anything,
Mm,
and I think that's just a negative way to look at it. Where it's like
yeah,
I have a couple hours to myself. Like, even if I am just resting, that is
Mhm.
something I'm doing. And it's stuff like that have helped me reformat that, in my brain, where it's like I may only have a few hours to myself every night, but I can still do things in that time.
Right.
I don't need 5 hours to practice something.
That's what I'm over here hearing you say you have 410s. I'm like, sweet, you get an extra day off.
I do. That's yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then Fridays, I'm like kind of a sludge monster, but yeah. Yeah. There's kind of a point that was brought up in our discussion just in DMs about a demon in Tokyo. Do you guys
Mm,
have kind of any idea what you think that
mm.
would be? Because in the beginning of the book, it kind of mentions there is a demon in Tokyo. I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious what you guys think it is, if
Yeah.
it's a real demon or not.
I think it's a ever shifting interpretation of what the demon is for Miko.
Sure.
Um, at one point, what did she say? I think the demon was freedom. Was freedom telling me that freedom is what I needed, or something along those lines. Um, but yeah, I saw that a couple times, and I was just like, I don't know if I should take this literally or metaphorically.
Yeah.
Um, this doesn't seem like the type of book that's going to have a literal demon, but just
Who knows? Stranger
at
things have happened.
yeah, right. And at the after reading the whole book now, I'm very much on the this is what her state of mind was in that chapter. She believes that there is a workaholicism. I don't know how you would say that, but there's just this perforating feeling of people not doing what they want to do and a kind of stagnation to what's happening in the world, and it's bearing down on her.
Yeah. I kind of perceived it as the expectation she has kind of for herself and how she should feel,
Mhm.
and how she is not meeting kind of those expectations. So like when it's like the demon is freedom after she is, finally free from her job, she's still not happy. She has all of these expectations for how she should feel, and she doesn't feel them. And so that's kind of how I perceived it.
Yeah, I kind of lean with both you guys. I did do look at like what other people said because I was like, "Is there an actual demon?" What are like I was like the uh,
It's the
and
little guys on the charms.
Yeah, the little charm guys.
so I was like, it's definitely like disappointment. But I found a some girl. I'm sorry, I'm not giving her credit. Wrote a great blog post on Solanin somewhere, and she had a cool thought where she thought the demon was like the negative energy that prevents these characters from going after their goals, or at least taking the leap to change. And I thought she summed it up pretty well. But that's felt kind of apt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think also this kind of that ties into the actual title. Like, did you look up what Solanin actually is? Um,
Poison.
it's poison. Yeah, a slow
Yeah.
acting poison. Um, which I guess you find only in potatoes. I don't exactly know why this is what we decided to choose for the title, but
Ask Inio Asano.
specifically, yeah.
Well, and it's not
But
that because it's also missing an E, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, because that's actually like Solanin, right? Is the actual name of or Solanine. Um, but also the title of the song and
Yeah.
an interesting, yeah. Again, just kind of showing Miko's consistency in changing her state of mind throughout this book. Um, at first, when Tanada disappears for a while, she reads the song and believes it's a breakup song. And then after he's dead and revisits it, she realizes that no, it's actually more probably him trying to figure out how to say goodbye to his past self.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm. Yeah, now I was trying to look up the lyrics to the Solanin song after you said it's poison, because it's interesting that he names it Solanin, poison or and like a slow decay. Is that life? Is that what happens to ourself as we age? Even just our soul. Like I'm curious why he named the song that, but
yeah,
or even their relationship. I don't know.
I feel like it's one of those things that will probably Unless Asano has an actual answer, is just gonna be very ambiguous and can maybe try to draw direct lines, but
It sounded cool, you know.
yeah, you're right.
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, and it's kind of cool that Asian Kung Fu Generation did the song
Mhm.
for both the live action, and they also just did their own version. And it's like, hey, I like them.
They're good.
It's a good song.
It is.
I don't know what the words are, but it's a good song.
I mean,
It gets the emotion across.
in the afterword, he says, "In Solanin, the main characters slowly but surely die as all their dreams wither." So, I mean, maybe he just that's how he just sees it. It's like a
Yeah.
slow poison. Speaking of that, one of the best panels of the book is when they actually have the concert or have the show, and it's just them rocking out. And I think what's the kid's name, Ohashi or whatever, kind of like rushes in to see the show, the last song,
Yeah.
and like Mako's just like killing it on the
Fist up.
guitar. Yeah, yeah. I was like, that was my favorite like art of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I really liked in that scene, like Maiko just kind of on the ground, just curled up before they like raise her fist up. Because it's
Mm,
like there have been moments in my life where I've completed something that I said I wanted to do, and that is just kind of how I felt.
yeah,
I have a real appreciation for the just landscape art in general, like showing the
yeah.
empty spaces of the buses and the trains and
Well,
the
my,
town, the city.
the one of the empty apartment was like
Yeah.
incredible. Or
Yeah.
Yeah,
that just the guitar, and then I loved that picture.
I like the kind of blocking that Inio does, where it's just white text on a black background. Where it's
Mm,
like you're reading this and then you just kind of break, and it's like it says something just incredibly impactful for what's going on, and it's kind of that kind of storytelling is can only be done in manga. I think just that kind of break and flow.
Yeah.
I did find the lyrics if you're still looking for them.
oh,
Oh, okay, good.
And then
Cool.
I
What do you got?
closed the book and then lost the page. It's 185,
Okay.
just so you know. Do you guys want me to just read the lyrics?
Yeah, I think it'd be good too.
Okay. Yeah,
sing
I'll
them,
go ahead. No.
belt it out.
No, not drunk enough for that one. Okay. Misunderstandings are beyond the sky. Is life just full of goodbyes? We caught a glimpse of our future, but it's time for a goodbye. If I had done this then, if I could return to then, but I can't become the boy I was. In that little room where I used to live, a stranger now resides. The awful words you said, all those wasted days. A lukewarm can of coffee on that cold winter's day. The long, rainbow colored scarf, like a trail of memories, chase me down the alleys, and I cannot get away. Suppose our tepid happiness were to linger on, in darkness of our hearts. An evil seed would sprout, and it's time for a goodbye. Goodbye. It's all right. Be well wherever you are. I too will survive. It's all right. So goodbye.
Brutal.
Yeah. It, it definitely feels like him saying goodbye to who he was. And which kind of goes back to my thought where he was on the path for happiness and was coming to realize that, and then just decided one last time I'm going to give my little, if this happens I'll be happy finally.
I think something finally clicked for him, which was good.
It feels like a Malazan intro or Malazan intro with Ash reading it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think I'm gonna put that at the front. We'll
Do
just
it.
start with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I get that reference now because I've read the first one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I do have a couple
Mention?
quotes I like.
Yeah, run it.
So I can't remember who says this one, but I thought this was like, I don't know, this applies to life and relationships and everything. But someone said, nothing's going to change if you're just thinking about it. No matter how much you worry about
Ugh,
someone else's problems, you can't fix it for them. And I was like,
yeah,
can you get that like tattooed on your body? I mean, that's inject that into your veins, anyone reading it.
It goes back to us kind of talking about how like, or it kind of encapsulates Inio's kind of idea where it's like if you're being stagnant, going, I wish this would happen, I wish this would happen. You're not. That's not going to happen. You got to do something about that.
Yeah. And the same with like you can't fix other people's problem. Like Maiko and Tanada, like she can't fix his problems. He's the one who
Yeah.
has to. And same with her. I mean, he can't fix her problems. I mean, you guys can be together and you can support each other, but at the end of the day, each person has to take the actions to get what they want. To feel fulfilled. And the last one, the afterword. I mean, this like him ending his afterword with this just. I would love to sit down with this guy. He says, this is the author. He said, there are no answers and nothing lasts. So there's only one thing that matters, and that's right now.
Yep.
And it's like, this guy's still fighting the demons in Tokyo. I mean, he's, incredible advice and he's right. But if that's not melancholic or just, or hopeful, it's like both. It's both edges of the sword,
Yeah, you can absolutely take that as a nihilistic answer to anything, or you could try to use that as a part of your pursuit, or be optimistic.
Part of me wonders
Take your
where
actions.
where his opinion of that kind of lies, because I know his other series aren't so happy. Not so bittersweet, I think is a better term. There's Goodnight Poon Poon, which is apparently like horrifically depressing to read.
Mm.
I think this is, and I've read people talk about how this book is the one that he doesn't like because it ends kind of
It's
on a
too
happier
positive.
note. Yeah,
Oh man.
but it's
He wrote an epilogue.
he did. I did
And
not
it's like
read it.
super rare
I've heard the tone of the epilogue.
because he wrote it 10 years later, and it was physical copies were only made for a con, like a convention in Canada. It's the only place you can get
Oh
them.
jeez.
So if you try to get a
Okay.
physical copy, it's like $250.
Yeah.
I think it's like probably $5 on Kindle or something, and it's only like 43
It is.
pages. But yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I want to read it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you know what's in it at all?
I won't spoil the
Okay.
tone of it, but it does take place 10 years after.
Okay.
I do want to read it as well. I didn't want to read it before we did this because I think it would change certain thoughts I have about this.
Sure.
If listeners want to hear our thoughts on it, they have to join the Legendarium Discord. Talk to
Right.
us there.
Or we do a 10-minute episode.
We do our own epilogue.
Bonus.
The bonus epilogue that's 5 minutes long and it's us crying or whatever.
Yeah. I do love these, like we've now read 2 manga where the author insists on doing a follow-up of some kind. And I know it's not a totally rare situation. I feel like there are a lot of manga authors that do that. So it's interesting that they decide to revisit their work in that way.
Uzumaki and this has some stuff in common. I mean, life goes on. It's a
Yeah.
circle. Nothing lasts. It does.
There's monsters.
Yeah.
One of them's a little more dismal. But yeah, thematically, yeah, not so different.
Do you guys think this will be something you reread? Kind of. I don't know. I'm not gonna say frequently, but kind of go back to it and go, I wanna feel this again.
I'll probably reread it because it's short. But this is something even more so than reread. This is something I want to give to people.
Sure. Yeah.
Like this is something I'm really looking forward to recommending, like my arsenal of recommendations. Particularly if I know someone's in their 20s, I want to be like, hey, check this out. Not saying you can't enjoy it in your 30s or later, because I definitely did, and I found it really powerful. And I've been there in my 20s and still there at times today. But I'm really looking forward to recommending this to people, and hopefully, anyone listening. Wow. I assume they've read it if they're listening because it's all spoilers, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with Yetti. I think there's some. I'll do at least one reread just because I think there is some that I would like to, now that I have context, just go back and
Sure.
see if I can do my own reinterpretation of understanding. But it- like you said, Spook, I could see a lot of this being therapeutic for a lot of people. So
Yeah,
it'd be
it has definitely pushed me to action in kind of certain parts of my life and just kind of changed
yeah,
my mental kind of outlook on things. So it's like it's very nice. Very
yeah.
it ends very melancholic, but it's a very nice melancholy to be in.
I'd say you don't want to be reading this in like your 70s. Get to it.
And
Get to
figure
it now.
it, trying to figure it out. It's like,
Honestly,
what
I
I do
think
for 40 years.
I think reading in your 70s would be perfect motivation for someone who is in their 70s and has regrets in life, you know? Like
Yeah.
someone like Tanada's father, you know?
Right. That scene would hit. Yeah.
And just to finally like, okay. I mean, I think another kind of almost not interpretation, but another way to look at it is like it's also never too late to try, you know? And even if you fail, you still tried.
Yeah. And you're right. And I think it's not just for young people, because that scene with the old man, he's sending letters to his wife who's deceased. And he has memory problems, and he's what he did over the day and stuff, but he's getting it back anyway because she's no longer there. But that those letters he gets back bring him happiness because it reminds him what he did that day that he couldn't remember, and it's like getting something
Yeah.
new and like that. So there's just that was really powerful. That whole that section.
It's
I would love to just get that ripped out and posted on my wall. That little
it
thing with the
seems
old man.
so kind of unrelated to the main story, but just as
Yeah,
impactful,
yeah.
you know?
Oh, and it was one that was one of my quotes that resonated with me was he just looks at Rip and May goes, I've been making her wait for a long time.
Mm,
Yeah.
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 right, because she died in the war a while
Yeah.
ago, and yeah.
And now this is his coping.
Mm. And he seemed happy. I mean,
He did. Yeah. I think it's funny because I think they completely misinterpret his they totally misinterpret his actions as just being an ailing old man. And
Yeah.
that's not at all what's happening there. So
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of just killer stuff in here.
People go
yeah.
read it. Check it out.
Absolutely. If you're here now and haven't read it, like come on. It's 3 hours, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
tops. I read the first two chapters in probably like 20 minutes,
Mm.
and then we started actually scheduling when we were gonna read, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna wait because I'll be done
Yeah.
with this tomorrow. So
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else? Leave it on that.
I think we're good.
I think we're
Awesome.
good.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us in our discussion on Solanin by Inio Asano. You can find us on the Legendarium Discord server for more discussion on this, perhaps even the epilogue, and many other books. Our intro and outro music is Galactic Damages by Jingle Punk. Thank you to the Legendarium podcast for loaning us this corner of their show. And thank you, Horizon Brave, for starting the Green Team, and to Jingles and Yetti for joining me tonight. I'm your host, Spook, and I wish you a good night.
Manga
Adios.
boy, Manga boy is out.